Morning Year 5, hope you're having a lovely week. It has been so great so far this week to see all of your creative work with your figurative language using similes and metaphors to start describing your very own spirit animal. Today we're going to have a rainbow grammar lesson where we're going to focus down on a spag focus for this week. This week we're going to be looking at subordinate clauses, so it is going to be a rewind because we've all looked at subordinate clauses a couple of times before. Okay, so we should have some prior knowledge that's going to help us to do this. What we're going to do is we're going to first have a rewind of what is a subordinate clause, then we're going to have a quick go at an activity identifying some subordinate clauses, and then you're going to have a go at writing some of your own. So I'm just going to share my screen so we can see. Perfect. So what are we doing? Well, we're going to be adding extra information to a sentence. We're going to do this by retrieving old learning, and this is going to be so that we can use subordinate clauses to describe our spirit animal. So first thing I want you to have a little think about, and I've given you a little hint because I've reminded you that we do this on a dark blue rainbow grammar card. So what can you remember about a subordinate clause? What is a subordinate clause? I just want you to pause the video now and have a little think about what you can remember about what a subordinate clause is. Perfect. Hopefully you've had a little think. Hopefully you've come up with something along these lines. So a subordinate clause is a clause that adds extra information to a sentence. It doesn't make sense on its own. So if we were just to take that blue card, that blue clause, and take it out of a sentence, it wouldn't make sense on its own. And it's introduced by a subordinating conjunction. Now we're going to move on to subordinating conjunctions now, but a subordinating conjunction is a word that comes at the beginning of a subordinate clause. So you can always check that you've done your subordinate clause correctly by just checking that you have a subordinating conjunction at the beginning of that word, at the beginning of that clause, sorry. So, having a little think then, how many of our subordinating conjunctions can you remember? Now, we used this clue to help us of I saw a wabub, so you should have seen one of these before in our classroom. Okay, can you remember what each letter of I saw a wabub, which subordinating conjunction does that stand for? Have a little think. It doesn't matter if you can't remember them all. Just have a little think and see how many of them you can remember. Wonderful. Hopefully then we've got a few of these. So our subordinating conjunctions are if, since, as, when, although, while, after, before, until, or because. Now, these aren't all of the subordinating conjunctions. There are lots and lots, but these are some of them, and these are some of them that we have used before as well. Okay, so if you want to use different subordinating conjunctions, if you want to do a bit of research, okay, you're welcome to find some more, but these are the ones that we're going to use today. So, first thing I want you to do then, I have given you 3 sentences. I want you to have a go to see if you can recognise where the subordinate clause is in each sentence, and then put it onto your rainbow grammar cards. Now, so you'll be looking for the subject, so what is the subject of your sentence, which will be in green. Then you will look for the predicate, which is what your subject is doing, which will always have a verb. Then you will look for your subordinate clause, which you know is going to start with one of those I saw a wabub words. And then finally, your stop, which is nice and easy. In this case, is going to be a full stop for each one, which is going to be in red. Now, you probably don't have rainbow grammar cards at home, so you can use pencil crayons to do this. So you can write each one in pencil crayon, or you can just do it in normal pencil, and you can label each part of your sentence. We're going to go through these one at a time, so if you feel confident and you want to pause the video now and have a go at them all, you can. If you want to stay with me now, I'm going to go through the first one, and then we'll go through the last 2 together anyway. If you want to see me do the first one, you can stay. If you want to go and have a go, you can pause the video and then just play in a moment. Wonderful. So for those of us, it doesn't matter whether you are watching me model this for the first time now, or you've already had a go. I'm just going to show you the first one done in rainbow grammar colours. So we've got the creature's eyes sparkled like diamonds when they were caught by the intense summer sun. Full stop. So the subject, what this sentence is about, is going to be the creature's eyes. So that is in green, because this is what our sentence is all about. It's about the eyes of the creature. The predicate is sparkled like diamonds, because that's what the sentence, that's what the eyes are doing. That is, the verb is sparkled, okay, and they sparkled like diamonds. Hopefully we can see here also we've used a simile because they are like diamonds. Okay, so that is our predicate, so that is in orange. Now, I could have ended the sentence there. The creature's eyes sparkled like diamonds, full stop. That would have made sense, but I've used a subordinate clause to add a bit more a bit of extra information about the creature's eyes. So I said, when they were caught by the intense summer sun. This is in blue because this is our subordinate clause. Now I can check it's a subordinate clause because it's adding extra information about the subject. Yep, it's adding extra information about the eyes. Does it make sense on its own? Well, let me read it on its own. When they were caught by the intense summer sun. When they were caught by the intense summer sun. That's not a sentence on its own because it's not telling me, it's not got a subject or a predicate, it's not telling me any information. Okay, I don't really know on its own, I don't really know what that's talking about. So yeah, that's another check. Okay, and then finally, does it start with a subordinating conjunction? Well, here I can see it starts with this word when, which I know is a subordinating conjunction, so I'm happy. I've got my subject, my predicate, and my subordinating conjunction, and then my stop at the end. Now let's have a look at another one, which hopefully you've all done independently. The majestic beast gently snorted before he began to approach me. So I've got the majestic beast, that is the subject of my sentence, that is who my sentence is about. So that is in green. Gently snorted is my predicate, it's telling me what the majestic beast is doing. And I can see I've got an adverb and a verb. Okay, I've always got to have a verb in my predicate because my predicate is about what is being done, what's happening. And then finally, I've got my subordinate clause, before he began to approach me. Okay, I know it's a subordinate clause because it doesn't make sense on its own. Before he began to approach me isn't a sentence on its own, and it is introduced by a subordinating conjunction, which in this case is before. Okay, finally, I've got my full stop at the end. Ooh, you can't really see it, there we go. Okay, which is stopping my sentence. Well done if you've got those on the right rainbow grammar colours. Finally then, this one was a bit trickier because this time our subordinate clause was at the beginning of our sentence. Now, actually, you might find that it's easier to write a subordinate clause at the beginning of a sentence. Personally, I find it much easier to put it at the beginning than to put it at the end. Okay, sometimes it just makes more sense. So we've got, although his coat was as dark as the night sky, it is my subject, still shimmered in the sunlight. Okay, so I can see that I've started my sentence with this word although. And I know that although is a subordinating conjunction. And it means kind of like the same as even though, despite the fact. Okay, although his coat was as dark as the night sky, it is my subject referring to its coat, still shimmered is my verb, in the sunlight. Full stop, ends the sentence. Okay, what else do you notice? What's a bit different now that my subordinate clause is at the start? What have I had to include in my sentence? Have a little think. Okay, hopefully we noticed that when our subordinate clause comes at the beginning of our sentence, it has to have a comma after it. Okay, and that just splits it up from the rest of the sentence. If it comes at the end, doesn't need a comma to split it up. If it comes at the beginning, your subordinate clause always has to have a comma after it to separate it from the rest of our sentence. Just going to check that it's definitely a subordinate clause. Yes, it starts with a subordinating conjunction. Does it make sense on its own? Although his coat was as dark as the night sky. That doesn't make sense on its own. That is a fragment, not a sentence. Okay, it's not a whole sentence. Wonderful, well done if you got that right, because it's a little bit trickier when a subordinate clause comes at the beginning. Now, what I want us to have a go at doing now is to write our own sentences about your spirit animal. So hopefully you should have a nice plan, like I have here, giving you a few ideas to write about. Now, it's okay if you want to go a bit off plan. That's absolutely normal. You might find that when you actually begin writing, okay, you might want to move away from your plan a little bit, or you might use it to help you. Okay, but I would say use this to help you so that you can include those similes and metaphors from yesterday. So before we start, I'm just going to pause this because I'm going to show you my own rainbow grammar cards and I'm going to model my sentences about my snowy leopard, then you're going to have a go at modelling your own. Wonderful. So here we have, I've done my first example, and for my first one, I have put my subordinate clause at the end of my sentence. So I is my subject. I'm talking in first person because I am Asha. Trembled with nerves is my verb. I've trembled, which is my verb, so that's going to go my predicate card. As the leopard strolled towards me like a majestic prince. Okay, so I've used that subordinating conjunction as, sorry, the light is a bit funny. As the leopard strolled towards me like a majestic prince. And I've also used a simile there because I've compared the leopard to a majestic prince. Okay, so I'm just checking that I've done my subordinate clause correctly. Well, would it make sense on its own? As the leopard strolled towards me like a majestic prince. That doesn't make sense on its own. That's a fragment, not a sentence. Okay, does it start with a subordinating conjunction? Yes, it starts with our subordinating conjunction as. So there is my first subordinate clause. Now, when you come to write yours, you don't necessarily have to write about something that your animal is doing. It might just be about how it looks. Okay, it might be about it approaching you. So it might be majestic leopard approached me. Let's have a little think. As I waited under the mango tree. Okay, it might be just about what it looks like, or it might be about something that it's doing. I'm going to do another one now, but this time I'm going to put my subordinate clause at the start of my sentence. Okay, I think this one you'll actually find a little bit easier. So I'm just going to pause and sort out my rainbow grammar cards. Oh, it's not letting me pause. Wonderful. So here I've had a go at writing another rainbow grammar sentence. I'm just going to make my screen a bit bigger so we can read it. And this time I have put my subordinate clause at the start of my sentence. So I've written, although his white fur camouflaged him against the snowy landscape, his piercing blue eyes stood out. Stop. Okay, so you can see here I've got my subordinate clause at the start with its subordinating conjunction, although. I've got a comma after it to separate it from the rest of my sentence, remembering I only need that comma if the subordinate clause comes at the start of the sentence. I've got my subject, which are his piercing blue eyes, and then I've got my predicate, which is stood out. And finally, I've stopped my sentence using a stop. Just going to pause. So what I want you to have a go at doing now then is I want you to use your plan from yesterday, and I want you to have a go, just like I have done, at writing some sentences about your own spirit animal. I want you to write 3 different sentences about your spirit animal. However, it is up to you whether you use a subordinate clause at the start or the end for each of them. However, I would like at least 1 sentence with it at the end and at least 1 with it at the start. So you've not done them all the same, you've got some variety in there as well. Once you've done your sentences, you can just take a picture of them and you can upload them to your portfolio so we can see how you've got on with your subordinate clauses. That is going to be everything from us today. Can't wait to see how you've got on, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye.